everybody. Welcome back to Pour into Purpose with Counselor Stewart. We are continuing our Building the Village series. And today, I want to talk about something that sounds simple at first, but the more you think about it, the bigger it gets. What are we pouring into students? And I'm not talking about curriculum. I'm not talking about standards, assessments, intervention plans, or whether they remember to write their name on the paper. I'm talking about what we pour into them every single day. Our words, our tone, our reactions, the way we say their name, what we say when they get it right, and probably even more important, what we say when they get it wrong. Because children are listening, and sometimes the things we say to them today become part of the way they feel about themselves tomorrow. Think about that for a minute. You know, as educators, we talk all day. We give directions, we redirect, we explain, we encourage, we correct. We answer questions we literally just answered 30 seconds ago. And then somebody raises their hand and asks the exact same question again. But that's just school. But because we talk so much, sometimes we don't stop and think about the weight of our language. There's a difference between saying, "Why do you always do this?" and saying, "Okay, this wasn't a good choice. Let's figure out what happened." There's a difference between, "You know you lazy," and "This work isn't finished yet." Those differences may feel small to us, but to a child, they can feel very different. Because one addresses what happened, the other can start sounding like a description of who they are. And children are still figuring out who they are, especially with younger children. You hear things like, "I'm bad at math. I can't read. Nobody likes me. I'm always in trouble." Or, "I'm the bad kid." And sometimes when I hear that, I think, who told them that? Maybe nobody actually said those exact words, but somewhere along the way, that became the message the child picked up. Maybe they're corrected more than everybody else. Maybe adults mostly say their name when something has gone wrong. Maybe school has become one long list of what they need to fix. And before long, the child doesn't just think, "I made a bad choice." They start thinking, "I am bad." That's different. And that's where our language becomes important. We can say, "No, that wasn't okay," and still communicate, "But you are okay." We can correct the behavior without making the child feel like they are the problem. Now, listen, I know there are days you may have redirected the same student 8 times before 8 o'clock. Somebody is tapping a pencil, somebody is walking around, somebody has suddenly forgotten every classroom expectation they have learned. And you're thinking, "Lord, we have talked about this." I get it. And so I'm not saying frustration doesn't happen. It does. The question is, even when I'm frustrated, what am I pouring into the child? Do they leave the interaction feeling like, "She's done with me"? Or do they understand, "She didn't like my choice, but she still believes I can do better"? And this is where encouragement becomes powerful. Sometimes we think encouragement means, "You're awesome. You're amazing. Good job." And there's nothing wrong with those things. But encouragement can go deeper. It can sound like, "I noticed you kept trying. I saw you include somebody who was sitting alone. You were frustrated, but you didn't give up. You told the truth, even though it was hard." You fixed that without me even having to ask. Now we're helping children recognize something inside themselves. I'm persistent. I'm kind. I'm responsible. I can make a better choice. That's different from simply saying, good job. We're helping them to see who they are becoming. And I especially think about the children who are still trying to figure out what they're good at. Maybe academics are difficult. Maybe they're shy. Maybe they've already been labeled because of behavior. Maybe school has become a place where they mostly hear about what needs improvement. That child needs somebody to help them discover what's good in them too. You're really good at helping people. You ask great questions. You're so creative. You notice things other people miss. You've got leadership in you. And sometimes the student who everybody calls bossy might have a little leadership in there. Now, we might have to work on how they lead. We might need to polish it a little bit. But instead of shutting it down, what if we say, you have a strong voice? Let's work on how to use it. See, I haven't taken something away from that child. I've helped them figure out how to grow it. That is part of healthy identity development. Children are constantly collecting information about themselves. Who am I? Am I capable? Does my voice matter? Do I belong here? And the adults around them help answer those questions. Not just teachers, not just counselors, everybody. The secretary at the front desk, the cafeteria staff, the bus driver, the coach, the administrator, the custodian who knows a child by name. Every adult has an opportunity to pour something in. And sometimes it's not a long conversation. Sometimes it's simply, good morning. I'm glad you're here. That's it. But think about the message underneath those words. I'm glad you're here. Your presence matters. You belong here. Sometimes a child needs that more than we know. And intentional communication does not mean we stop holding students accountable. Absolutely not. Children need structure. They need boundaries. They need adults willing to say, no, that wasn't okay. But accountability and affirmation can live in the same conversation. You made a mistake. Now let's figure out how you're going to repair it. I know you can handle this better. This isn't who I know you to be. Now, that last one is powerful. This isn't who I know you to be. There's still an expectation, but there's also belief. I'm saying, I see more in you than what you showed me in this moment. And aren't you glad that nobody never defined you by every bad decision you made growing up? I know I am. Our students deserve room to grow too. I also want us to think about who gets our positive language, because sometimes the children who consistently do well, thank you, great job, I appreciate you, and that's good. But then you have another child whose name is mostly connected to correction. Marcus, sit down. Marcus, stop. Marcus, where's your homework? Marcus, we talked about this. By lunchtime, Marcus has heard his name 15 times, and not one of those times felt good. So maybe we intentionally find something real, not something made up. Kids know when you're forcing it, but something genuine. Marcus, I noticed you got started right away. Marcus, thank you for helping him. Marcus, you handled that better today. Sometimes we have to change the pattern, especially for the child who has started believing adults only notice me when I mess up. And our students are watching how we talk about other students too. They hear hallway conversations, they notice the sigh They see that look adults give each other. Children know when they have a reputation. And once we decide who a child is, it becomes very easy to interpret everything through that label. If we decide they're lazy, every unfinished assignment becomes proof. If we decide they don't care, eventually we stop asking what might actually be happening. Sometimes we have to challenge our own story instead of, why doesn't he care? Maybe we ask, what made him stop trying? Instead of, why does she always need so much attention? Maybe, what is she trying to communicate? That shift may seem small, y'all, but it changes the way we see the child. And when we see them differently, we usually respond differently too. So this week, I want us to simply notice our language, not judge ourselves, not overthink every word, just notice. What do students hear from me most? Do they hear correction? Do they also hear encouragement? Do they hear that I believe in them? Do they know I noticed their growth? And maybe there's one student you can be especially intentional with this week. You know the one who stretches your patience just a little bit more than everybody else. Find one real thing and say it out loud. I see you trying. You handled that better today. I'm glad you're in class. You matter here. Because sometimes we assume children know how we feel about them. They don't always know. Make it a habit of telling them. So here's the week's weekly pour. Before you correct, redirect, encourage, praise, or respond, ask yourself, what am I pouring into this child right now? Am I pouring in a label? Or am I pouring in accountability with hope? Correction with dignity. Encouragement that helps them recognize something good in themselves. Our students are still becoming, and every day, the adults in their village have an opportunity to shape what they begin to believe about who they are. We may not remember every conversation we have with the student, but they may remember what we said when they were struggling. So let's pour in courage. Let's pour in belonging. Let's pour in possibility. And let's remind our students, you are more than your hardest moment. You are still growing. And there's something good in you worth developing. That's how we build the village. Our relationship, our interaction, and sometimes one sentence at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me today on Pour Into Purpose with Counselor Stewart. If this episode made you think about a student, or maybe about an adult who once poured something meaningful into you, share it with another educator. And until next time, keep building, keep believing, and keep pouring with purpose.